Today we will be making a collage of a birdhouse. For this project we'll be using some scissors, some stick glue, a pencil, and lots of different scraps of colored paper. We'll also be using tissue paper later as well. All right. To begin, I'm going to start off with a large piece of paper. I chose blue kind of as a sky color. Then I'm going to find some strips, in this case brown, but black would work too, really any color, for the pole of the birdhouse. And I'm going to make a T that's kind of towards the bottom of the paper. I want to leave a little bit of room around my T so that I can add greenery later. So I want it high up enough, but then I also want to leave room for the birdhouse above the T too. Your T can be as short or as long as you want. It could be wide enough to go all the way towards the edges of the paper. That would be fine too. Then I'm going to go ahead and choose some paper to use for my birdhouse. Now whatever color you pick, you can always cut it down to size. Mine's a little bit too tall for my paper, so I'm going to go ahead and cut it down so that it's a better height. Now you can see it will fit very nicely on my T. I'm going to take the paper that I choose for my main color of my birdhouse and I'm going to cut strips. Now notice I'm stopping before I get to the end of my paper. My strips are about an inch apart, maybe a little bit less. I did not measure them, but if it would make you more comfortable to measure, you can always do that with a ruler and a pencil. I'm going to take another sheet of paper that's the same size as my first one, and I'm going to cut horizontal strips. These ones we will be using to weave into our first paper. I decided to go with yellow and orange because they are similar colors, but you could go for ones that are more bold as well. I'm going to go ahead and put glue on the top of my birdhouse paper where I did not cut. I'm just doing it on the very top strip so that I can still move the bottom sections that I have cut into strips. And now I'm going to take my first piece of orange and weave it through my paper. So I'm going to go under, over, under, over, under, over until I'm all the way through. I'm going to push it up as high as it can go and just glue down the end so it doesn't move. My next strip has to be opposite my first one. So it's going to go over the first, under the second, over the third, under the fourth, over and under, so that when you push it up and put it right next to that first one, it looks kind of like a checkerboard. I'm going to glue down that strip so it doesn't move, and I'm going to continue to weave, this time starting under, then over, under, over, under, over, until I have my third strip. Make sure that you always push your strip all the way up before you glue it down so that it's nice and tight. I'm going to continue to weave until I run out of room on my birdhouse. I'm really trying to be careful to make sure that I always push my strips all the way up and then I line them up with the edges of my paper. I'm also making sure that it makes a checkerboard pattern. If you accidentally skip a strip, or if you start going under instead of over, it should be pretty obvious when you look at your pattern because it will not look like a checkerboard. All right, this is going to be my last strip because I am out of room. So I'm going to go ahead and glue that end down. And then for added stability, I'm going to put some glue on my paper underneath my birdhouse to attach the rest of it to my page. Now I want to add some details like a roof. So I'm going to put some paper above my birdhouse and just use my pencil to kind of draw out a roof line. Your roof can be a triangle. In my case, I am doing a trapezoid. It could be a circle roof, really whatever kind of roof you would like. You could do it in more than one color. It could have stripes or a pattern on it. I'm choosing red because I'm loving the warm colors against this blue background. I'm going to go ahead and glue my roof on. I'm also going to add a little circle. I found just some tape to trace. And I'm going to use that for the little hole that the bird goes in when entering the birdhouse. Now yours doesn't have to be a circle. You could make it look like a cute little door. You could add little windows. However you want it to look. I'm trying to think of some other things I can add to my birdhouse to give it some more details. I thought it would be kind of cute to have a little chimney. So I'm going to go ahead and add a little yellow rectangle to the top of my birdhouse to make it look like it has a little chimney. I also thought it might be nice to have some bushes in the front part of the house, just like it's a little house in a neighborhood or something. So I'm cutting some bush-like shapes. I'm leaving the bottom of them flat, but then adding some kind of poofy cutting to the top of them. And I will put them like this, overlapping the front of my birdhouse. This would also be a great place to put little flowers. And because it's so small and because we're cutting them out of paper, a flower could just be something as simple as a circle that you attach to the little bushes. All right, I'm liking how this birdhouse is looking. I do want to add some things to the bottom of the birdhouse to give it some interest too. For this, I thought it would be more fun to use some tissue paper. I'm stacking up some green tissue paper in different shades, and I'm cutting some leaf shapes out. Tissue paper is so thin that it shouldn't be too hard to cut multiple papers at once. So a lot of times I like to stack my tissue paper in a stack of 3 or 4 or even more, and then cut a bunch of leaves out at one time. I want to add some greenery around the bottom of my birdhouse to kind of show that the birdhouse is hanging out in some bushes or some plants. I'm using these different colors of green leaves, and I'm kind of mapping out where I want them to go on my paper. Then I'm going to use some stick glue, and I'm going to put a little dot on the page and then stick part of the leaf down to the dot. Now I'm not worried about gluing my entire leaf down, because it's okay to give that little extra texture to my paper. So if the edges of the leaves kind of stick up a little bit, that'll just make it a little bit more interesting. I'm kind of overlapping my leaves, so I'm putting some of them behind some other ones to make them look like they're all just kind of coming out of the same bush. I'll do the same thing on the side of my birdhouse, and notice that some of my leaves overlap my T a little bit as well. Trying to arrange my leaves one a little bit in front of another one so that they are layered on top of each other just a little bit, using just a little dab of glue for each one so you can kind of see how that looks. Next, I wanted to add a pop of color. So I'm going to add some flowers. By doing that, I'm just cutting some squares of tissue paper. And I'm going to take my square and just kind of crinkle it a little bit to give it some shape. I'm going to put a dot of glue, stick glue, on my page, and then I'm sticking the center of my tissue paper down and then kind of crinkling up the edges to make it look like a flower. So I'm putting some glue in the middle, and then I'm crinkling up the edges so that it kind of sticks out like a flower. I love this effect for flowers. It's so easy, but it has such a nice look to it. So a dot in the middle of the tissue, and then just kind of squishing the edges so that it comes out like a flower. I'm just using pink. You could do multiple color flowers if you wanted, but it really has a nice effect for the paper. All right, I'm happy with how that looks. I just wanted to add a couple more details. My picture's not looking quite finished yet. I was thinking it might be nice to add some lines on my roof to make it look like the roof has shingles. You could do this just by drawing some lines in with a marker, like I am doing, or you could get fancy and actually use paper to cut out some shingles to add to the roof. You can see I just made a bunch of U's that are connected for my little shingles. I also think if we have a bird house here that we definitely need a bird. So I'm holding up different colors of paper, and I think I really like these warm colors. The reason I picked orange is because orange is the opposite of blue, so the bird will stand out more on orange paper. When drawing a bird, I usually start with a U shape, then add a head and connect it to the body like that. Just a really simple shape. I'm going to go ahead and cut out my bird with its little beak too. And then I will flip it over so you can't see my pencil lines. And there you have an adorable little bird. Now my bird is just floating right now, so I'm going to just cut one little foot out to stick on top of the house so it looks like the bird is standing there. And then you can see I've used some marker just to add a couple little elements to the bird. I also went over my shingles. I wanted them to stand out a little bit more. I hope you had fun with this project. I can't wait to see how your birdhouses turn out. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you again soon. Have a good one.